Hey there, everybody. It's Tanya, and welcome to Know the Code Show. It's episode number 9. Gosh, we've been doing this for 9 weeks. Wow. Where's the time go? I tell you, I guess we've been having a lot of fun over there on Slack and getting to know each of you. Okay, let's just give a couple of moments here and make sure everybody gets an opportunity to log in. Looks like we've got a good chunk of the folks who registered here today. I want to say hi to all the new members. Hello there. Welcome. If this is your first time being here on the show, let me just kind of give you a real quick what we do. So each week I send out a code challenge that also has some questions in it. And that's something for you to exercise your brain with. Go out and see if you can first understand the concepts on your own and do the exercises. And then we come into these live sessions on Wednesday, and I walk through the code challenges in the questions and I explain them in detail. And once we get done, then we stop at the end and we do a Q&A. So if you're there on Crowdcast, you can see a Q&A box just below the video. And any questions that you have now or while I'm talking through the show, go ahead and write them out there. And then I will answer them in the Q&A section. So I do not keep tabs on what you guys are chatting about or in the Q&A until I'm done. It just kind of is distracting as you're trying to teach. So that's how things work. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, if you have not gone through all the other episodes yet, you probably don't know this, but we've been spending a lot of time in the WordPress Event Registry system. And we're doing that purposefully because WordPress is event-based. Anything that you want to do to interact or extend the functionality of WordPress, they've set up all these different events for you to be able to tap into. And those are actions and filters, right? You can do an add filter, you can do an add action, and now you've registered or wired up your callback so that now you can interact with WordPress. That's the event registry system. So this week, what we're going to do is we're going to learn about iterating through all of the callbacks that are registered for your particular event that you're trying to tap into. And we're going to be looking specifically at the apply_filters function. Okay. And within that, what we need to learn first is there's a handful of PHP instructions that we need to learn to be able to manipulate and iterate through an array's structure itself. Okay. Then we need to look at the do while loop and understand how that works. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at core. So we look at that apply filters and see how it's functioning within itself. And you're going to see that what we're doing in our simulated registry mockup looks pretty much the same, right? Okay. So I showed you the code. Here is the code right here. And you see that there's right here, there's a reset. And then here's the do while loop. Then there's a for each in here. And the rest of this code, we're just going to ignore because we're only focusing right here today. That's all we're going to do is focus right here. And if you're curious, where the heck is she at? Oops, I'm in the wrong one. Let me scroll up. We're going to be right here, and you can see it's in apply filters. Here it is. Function is apply_filters, and you can find this in wp-includes, and it's in the plugin.php file. You can do a global search and find it depending upon which editor that you're using. This is PHP Storm that I'm using here. And for those who want to know, yes, this is the IDE that I prefer. It's a professional suite just for PHP developers, which is what you're aspiring or already are, and just trying to get some of the gaps filled in, right? So this is something that you want to check out and use, and I will be using it through all the training that we do, including Dev Apprentice and Dev School. Okay, so let's move on. The first question that I asked you is, Every array, this is a true or false. Every array has an internal pointer to its current element. Is that true or false? Raise your hand. True or false? It's true. Right. So in PHP, actually, it's universal, but we'll get into that later when you get into the actual training and we start talking about computer science. But basically, every array has an internal pointer within it, okay? And that pointer is being used to point at each of the elements within its structure. All right, so let's take a look. Here is from our code. So we have the event registry mock, right? That's the variable. And then we have this great, big, huge, multi-dimensional array. And each of these are elements within that particular array. So, and they're keyed. Here's foo. So this would be simulating a filter called foo. This is the priority levels. We're simulating the priority level. So when you say it's a priority 9, a priority 10, a priority 15, this is what it looks like in there. This would simulate a callback called foo_9. And here are the args that we need to have set in there. We have a function, which that's the full qualified name, which again is just foo because this is just a mock. How many arguments are going to be passed and so on. So the internal pointer, which is indicated by this big red box or this big red arrow up here to kind of help you visualize in your mind that there is a pointer in there that says, right now I'm pointing at, boom, right here. This is where I'm pointing at. And the code, which is PHP in this case, has the ability to manipulate this pointer. It can move it forward. It can move it backwards. It can take it back to the beginning. It can take it to the end. So we can go and manipulate that pointer that allows me to go and say, I want to point here at this element. I want to point at that element. I want to point down here. I want to point there, and so on. That's how we extract the data out of the array. All right, let's move on. I gave you a big chunk of code right here. Here's the code. And you can see it's same thing. We have a callback set up for loop start. And we're simulating apply filters, and that's what I called it. And then here are a simulation of the foo being our event and all the callbacks by their priority. And we put that into event_registry_mock, right? Okay. And I'm just going to spit it out to the screen so that you can see, yep, that's what we see there. And the first question that I asked you was, if I can get to it, what is the value right here? So when the current runs on the event foo, right? What's going to be that value that gets assigned over here to current_element? Well, let's go and see. All right. Let me just refresh my screen. This is the full registry for our simulated mock. And this is what gets kicked out. Okay. So we're looking at foo right here. And when current runs, right now it kicked out this, right? That's what it kicked out. So let's look at our little mapping again, because I find that these pretty little graphics kind of help you to understand what's going on. So we want to be able to get what is the value of current. Okay. And what we got back is what is in red. So why is that the first element? Why is current pointing at this particular spot in the data bucket? If you looked at the PHP manual, let's go and do that right now, shall we? Here is current in the PHP manual. And what's it say? It says it returns the current element in an array. Then it gives you a description, blah, blah, blah. Then it jumps down and it says every array has an internal pointer to its current element. That was our first question, wasn't it? Cool. which is initialized to the first element inserted into the array. Now, what the heck does that mean? What that means is when you first create your array, which is what we've done here, right? We created it and then we assigned it to this variable. That's the very first thing we did. So we're initializing it. So when it's initialized, by default, it points to the internal pointer of that array is pointing to the first element. That way you always know I'm starting, boom, right here. I'm starting at this first element. Okay? I hope that makes sense to you. That was important. I know it seems kind of, well, why'd we do that for? It's important because now you understand, get rid of that, that where does that pointer start? You always need to know, just like if you're going on a trip somewhere, right? You got to know where you're at to know where you need to go to. Okay. So the next thing we wanted was the code challenge, and I put in some pseudocode right here, and I asked you, and please forgive me, but I misworded it, and I went back and reworded it. Sometimes I do that. I get writing things, and it's like, oh, crud. I didn't mean to write it that way. I had it in my mind, and I wrote it the wrong way. But basically what I was asking you to do here in the code challenge was replace out the pseudocode so that it gives us the second element. All right? Second element. Here we go. I hope that you found that it's next. Next, right? So let's take a look at what next is. Get used to this, guys. I like looking in the documentation. Actually, a lot of folks would chuckle at me because engineers don't like to look at documentation. We like to just figure it out first. But I'm going to have you looking in documentation. Okay, so next, it advances the internal array pointer. That's what it does. But it has another task. Did you catch that when you read this? It actually does two thingies. Huh, cool. So it increments that pointer. All right. So now I'm not pointing here anymore. I'm pointing at 10. So I'm pointing at the next one. So I went from boop to doop. There. I incremented my pointer and you saw it move. Okay. The next thing that it does, because it has a second function, it returns the data. So first it increments, and then it returns the current element. All right. So let's see, and you can see right here, it explains that to you. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. There we go. So here's the one previous was the current, right? And then it came down and it gave me the second one. And if I look at that, I go, okay, but where's the key? It's not going to give you the key. It's going to give you the data. So it gives me everything that's in red. And that's what it gave me back. Everything that's in red. So that's what next does. All right, let's move on. Go back to our code. The next thing that we wanted to do is we need to be able to say, all right, I'm sitting here at next and I'm on the second element. Now I want to return myself back to the first element. Okay. So I want to return the array's internal pointer to the first element. And there's actually two correct answers to this. Did you get both of them? Let's look at the first one. The first one would be previous. And you're going to say, okay, how can I use previous in that state? Previous does the opposite of what next does. So it, instead of going incrementing forward, it decrements, and we're going to step backward one. Right? So instead of moving to the next one, I'm just picture yourself moving back one. And that's what previous does. It also returns just like next does. So because we're sitting on the second element, we know that we can go back to the first by just stepping back one. That's why you can use previous in this particular case. If you're not sure where you're at, you can use reset. Okay, what does reset do? Get that out of there. Hold on one second, and I will bring it up for you so you can actually see the code. Ding, there we go. Reset just simply returns the internal pointer of that array back to the first element. That's all it does. Wrong. It also returns the value too. So it does two things. Okay, so, and you're going to see that, right, when we looked in the core. What did you see when you looked in core? Right here. See it? Reset. It's the first thing that it does is it goes through and it says, let's make sure I'm pointing at the first one. So it resets it. That's why that was important to learn. Excellent. So what does it return to me? Let's go ahead and run this. It returns me back to 9. And you can see there's foo9 up there. And what's the first element in our array? Come back up here. Yeah, it's this area right here. So it's keyed by foo_9, and that's what we got back. All right, so I think we beat that one to death. Let's go ahead and move on. Now, this next set, again, is using the same array. How original was that, huh? And then we come down. So this beginning part is all exactly the same, nothing different. Even down here to where I'm kicking it out through Kent. But what I'm going to do instead now is I'm going to assign the tag. And if we looked here, that's what they called it, was a tag. Let me scroll up so you can see it, which is the event name. That's what tag is. Okay. So we come back here. So I'm assigning that to foo. It's the only one I have in there. So makes sense. And then we're going to reset, and then we're going to go down through this do while loop. Okay. So the question that I asked you was, this is Q3A. When will the do while loop stop executing? Okay. So the first thing we need to do is talk about a do while loop and how does that work? And then I'll come back and tell you the answer. Okay, so a do while loop is different than a while loop. It's different than a for each. It's different than a for. So what a do while loop does is it allows this code right here to execute one time, at least one time. So it comes in and it hits the do right here, and it falls through it and allows this to run. Whatever is between the do and the while. See the do and the while. Whatever you have in here is going to execute one time. And then it's going to come down to the while, and it's going to look at the conditional that you have set here in the parentheses and see if it's true or false. If it's false, it's going to kick out of this circuit and continue on its merry little way. If it's true, then it's going to come back up here to the do, and it's going to go back, and it's just going to sit here and loop and loop and loop and loop until this is false. And that's why you see right here that this is not equal to false. If it is false, it's going to kick out. So the question then is when does a next give you a false condition, right? When's it going to give you a false? I hope you guys got this one because it's right in the manual. But let's go ahead and pull it up. And we take a look at this, and it goes through and it goes through. And down here, it says returns array value in the next place, da, 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 or false if there are no more elements. False is no more elements. Okay. So I've gone through either my array is empty and there are no elements in it, or I've iterated through all of them, and now my internal pointer, where's my pointer? Come back up here. My internal pointer went from 9 to 10 to 15, and it got down here to 15, and that's the last bucket in the array, right? And if I try to increment again, which it does, it comes down and it says there's nothing else there. I don't have anything after 15, right? Shake your head. No, there's nothing else after 15. And so therefore it's going to return a false. So therefore the answer to the question was, it's going to stop executing after it's iterated through each of the priority levels. Once it's gone through 9, 10, and 15, after 15 runs, this runs, then it's going to stop executing. That's the answer. All right, next one. In this particular question, I'm asking you what is being rendered out on the screen when we go through the for each loop. All right, so I have right here, I have an echo, and this is actually not priority, but that's what I tagged it as for the variable. And then I'm kicking it out on the screen. And I want to know, as it iterates through this, what's getting kicked out on the screen? And the answer is each array that has the function and the accepted args. So if I come up here, let's take a look. We already know, come back down. I'm going to explain this whole circuit to you right here. But you already know what current returns to you, right? Because we went through that. So if I went and did current on this event tag, what would it give to me? And from that, I can then go and see, okay, so it's going to give me this array, and it's going to give me as a priority, which actually is not true. This should be callback. Even callback key, if you want to say that, but is the actual callback that's used in apply filters is going to be in right here. It doesn't use that one. It uses this one. But anyway, I call this callback key. Why don't we do that? If I can spell it. You know, I'm having one of those days today where everything is just fighting me as I go through the day. You know how you have those days? Well, that's today. So, all right. So what I'm going to get as I iterate through this for each is I'm going to get each one of these. I'm going to get this, and I'm going to get this one. It's going to kick it out one by one by one. Well, let's just see if I'm telling you the truth or not. Boy, this better work, or else I'm going to feel silly. Well, thank goodness. All right, so I've got foo9. That's the callback key. And sorry that I named that inappropriately just to confuse you. It wasn't intentional. Sometimes I do put tricks up there, but that wasn't one of them. And it gives me the data value. So you can see that's assigned in the variable $the_, and it gives me each one of those arrays. So it goes through one by one. See how it did that? Pretty neat. Well, let's explain what's going on. I think that will help for those who are going, huh? I don't get that. And it's important that you get it. All right, so in the for each, the very first thing that's going to happen is this current is going to run. You can see it right here. Right there. If I get my mouse to play nicely with me. And what gets returned from that? Well, we know that we reset it up here. So therefore, the first element of foo is what? Let's go back up here. Is this one. This is the first element. Oh, sorry. That's the first element, right? Is 9. So we're into the 9s. And we're going to iterate through everything that's in 9. So it gives me this and everything right here. That's what it gives me, is that. Okay, does that make sense? Current gives me that because the first time I'm pointing at 9. I'm pointing right here. So it's going to give me everything that's in 9, this whole kit and caboodle. All right. So from that, then the for each iterates through that entire array. And it gives me the first one's going to be the callback key and then the. So I only have one in here, but the callback key is going to be foo_9. The underscore is going to be its array that's assigned to it. Okay. And it goes through and it kicks it out. And then it comes down and it says, oh, there's no more of them. And it kicks out of that and it comes down to this while. The next then evaluates and it says, okay, nope, I got an array back. So what did I do here with the next? I incremented the pointer. Cool. So I was at 9 and now I incremented the pointer. What am I pointing to now? I'm pointing to the 10. Excellent. So when I run current again, I'm getting everything that's in red. This whole array is going to come over to it. So now it's going to iterate those one by one. And it's going to go and it's going to say, let me pull that back up again. Sometimes it's easier to see it in the graphic. The very first one is going to be the foo_10 will be the key. The value is going to be its array. Then it'll go through and it'll do bar_10, then it'll do baz_10. And it gets down after baz and it says, oh, there's no more. And it kicks out of that for each. Comes down to the while. We increment the pointer again to the next level, which is 15. Here it is right here. And nope, I got back an array because I get back this array. So it's not false. I come back up to the top again. Now I'm going to run current and it's going to give me back this entire array. Oops. This whole array right here. It's going to give me all that back. And now I'm going to iterate through that one by one. And so I have foo_15 is the key. Then its array is the value, which gets assigned into $the_, and it kicks it back out again. Now it comes back down because there's no more in 15, right? It comes down to the while and it says, next goes, oh, I didn't have any more, so false. And it kicks out and dumps back out of that. And that's the end. Ba-dum-bum. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to you. Okay, so we're going to put a bow on it here real quick. And we're going to skip over to here. This is in core. Here we go to core. And we see, what do we see? We see a reset. Alrighty. If the args are empty, then we're going to grab the args here so that we have some args to look at. Yeah. We're going to skip over that and move on. We're going to come down to the do. Here's the do while loop. They actually are breaking their own formatting rules. Please do not use core to know what the WordPress standards of coding are because it does not comply in a lot of places. So it should be this, and it should be that, and it should be this. And if we're doing proper Yoda, it should be this, and that can go away. That's the way it should be formatted. I just thought I'd share that with you real quick. Just as you see little things, please, like I said, do not use core as your guideline for what the standards are because it's not right. All right, so if we come down and we say, here's the loop again, we have the for each and we're looking at current, here's the, and you see there is no key because we don't care about the key. Key is just used as a mapper. Within core, it's doing and just making sure that there actually is a function. The function is your callback, right? And then it's going through and it's assigning it and sending it off on its merry little way. And it comes down. Here's the false like we just had. So you can see that what we simulated back over here in the plugin, this simulates exactly what it's doing over here. And we'd already gone through args and what call user func array does in previous videos. So that's why we didn't need to go back through that again because we've already done that. All right, great. So let's go ahead and hit the Q&A section. Hi, Jackie. Let me just take a moment here and take a sip of my lemon water and read your question. Yes, I can explain. Let me read the question for those who are not here and just watching this later on for the callback. All right, so the question is, can you explain the difference in the position of the false in these? So let me put this back. All right. This is the way core is, right? It has the false after the next, and this is the way that we have it. there's a design pattern. It's called Yoda, that says that you want to put the, okay, it's going to escape me. See, I told you I was having that kind of day. Huh. See, now if Robin were here, I could explain it better. Anyway, Yoda is basically saying that we want to put the value of it first and then the conditional next. So whatever's going to be evaluating, it needs to go out and run a function. You want to put that after. So in this case, we have a false, and that should go first per WordPress standard. The order of it does not make a difference in how it executes, right? It's not going to make a difference if I have the false on the left or I have the false on the right. So if we had, let's say we were also doing something like, oh, I don't know, some sort of string, and I was evaluating that, it wouldn't make a difference if that's on the left or the right. It's still going to evaluate it. Yoda is new to me since I've come to WordPress. Everywhere else in the world, it's actually flipped the other way. So it would actually look like this if you were coming from a lot of different languages besides WordPress. But WordPress wants to flip it the other way, and I have no issue with that. It's just a difference of how we think about things. So I hope that answered your question, Jackie. If it didn't, please go ahead and write me a little note there. Anybody else have any other questions? You guys are just too easy today. You're being light on me. Even my buddy Patrick hasn't come up here to ask me a question. All right, great. If you guys do have questions after the show, or as you're looking through this again and you're like, it doesn't make sense to me, you know where I'm at. Just hit me up on Slack and we can talk about it. All right. You guys have a fabulous day. Have fun coding. We'll talk to you later.